You absolutely love to see this from the Spurs as Gregg Popovich speaks on Spurs rookie Stephon Castle, where he sees him playing in the lineup, and some amazing things that he has seen in his game. And it has some Spurs fans really, really excited. We're going to dive into all of that. Plus, Pop also spoke about who is going to be the starters for the Spurs preseason opener and into the regular season, teasing some fans with some potential rosters. Finally, we got to talk again about Blake Wesley and Malachi Branham and their different views on this season. So stick around for all that coming up in this episode of Spurs Digest. But guys, I remind you every video, and you guys are subscribing like crazy. I really appreciate it. But still, 85% of you watching this video are not subscribed. We got Spurs content all season long, going to be daily throughout the season. So if you want your home for Spurs news, rumors, reports, this is the spot to be. Let's jump into the video. And I want to start with two mindsets. It's as simple as that. Now, I spoke at length about Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley in a recent video. Go check out the last couple videos from Saturday and Friday if you haven't seen them yet. But I wanted to talk about this again because we all know this is kind of not a contract year, but it sort of is in a way, right? The Spurs have the option whether to pick up or not pick up Branham or Wesley's contracts coming up for the next few seasons. And, well, there are some question marks around these two guys. They both have their highs and their lows, their strengths and their weaknesses. But I just wanted to get into what each of them kind of had to say about the situation. We'll start with Wesley. He said, everybody knows it's a contract year. We're trying to win, trying to get better. There's a lot of pressure, and I really like that mindset. And Wesley has been getting a lot of praise as well, including from Harrison Barnes, who said that Wesley was the one standout for him at camp. But then Malachi Branham, who kind of puts, again, these are quotes out of context. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Like, taking individual quotes out of context are not going to give the full perspective of how these guys are feeling. But still, Branham said, I'm here putting in work every single day. It just depends on what they want to do, but I'm going to go work hard and I'm going to do what I need to do. So, very interesting, right? Wesley's kind of like, there's a lot of pressure. Branham's like, I come here, I work hard, I do what I need to do. It's interesting. I actually saw a post today saying, why don't we just fuse these two guys? Can you imagine someone with Malachi Branham's offensive upside, but with Blake Wesley's defense and versatility on the defensive end? That would be a phenomenal player, because obviously Branham's biggest weakness right now is his defense, notably some of his defensive awareness sometimes, but he has been proving to be a bit more of a liability, while Wesley is, again, like I mentioned in the past video, kind of the opposite, right? Wesley's one of those guys that you put on any guy on defense, and since he's come into the league, at first he was really slept on because he wasn't that good, let's just be honest with ourselves, but he was still showing those defensive flashes. It was just his offensive game that was lagging behind, but this past season, his two-point percentage jumped through the roof. He jumped up to, 55% or something on twos, which was way better than his rookie season. So for Wesley, it's more about getting that consistent offensive game, keeping that 2-point percentage high, but upping his 3-point percentage to the level that we sort of saw in his rookie year. Still kind of waiting to see if it's going to click again at that higher level. For Branham, it's like keep evolving that offensive game. His offensive numbers didn't quite take the jump we were hoping for last year, but the big part for him is defense, and you're going to have to do a bit of both if you want to be on this team long term, especially with all the competition from the guard spots, including from a guy that we'll get into a little later in this video. But I just wanted to open the video with those two quotes there, and I want to see you guys debate about this. You guys seem to like talking about Wesley versus Malachi Branham, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that down below. But we are quickly going to move into the second topic. We got jam-packed videos all the time here. So, and I want to talk about this. Huge decisions coming, and this kind of plays off the last topic, talking about Wesley and Branham, because the Spurs, they got some preseason games, they got some regular season games coming up, and the starters, well, we're still not even sure what we're going to see. As Coach Pop, he said that, starting lineup conundrum is perfect timing for the Western Conference in flux, and he goes on to say that, actually, I don't think I have the quote. I thought I had the quote, but I don't. He said, wait, maybe, do I? We're pulling this on the fly in this video. Oh, heck yeah, of course I have the quote. I still don't know who's going to start on Monday. You can probably guess who some of the starters are. And that's the perfect transition to come right back. So, I did want to just bring that quote up. He's still not sure. And this, by the time you're watching this, maybe it's Monday, maybe the starting lineup has been revealed, but as of the recording of this video, it absolutely has not. So let's take a look at the Spurs depth chart. So, this is kind of ESPN's projected starting five, and I gotta say, I can't necessarily disagree. Now, in the preseason, you don't know if you're always going to get the 5 starters that you get in the regular season. There's always some shenanigans going on in the preseason, but Chris Paul, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Sochan, Victor Wembanyama, that to me seems like the best choice for the starting 5, and we all know Sochan's defense has been amazing. I mean, that's his strongest suit, but he has actually been improving, especially on his 3-point shot, so he's actually probably the player I'm most eager to see take a jump this season. Like, Wemby, obviously, but I'm already in awe with him every single day. But Sochan, I think, if he can really take that jump offensively, is going to be a huge key, a huge catalyst for this Spurs team taking that next step. But anyway, it's not about him, although I could go on about him for a while. But there are some people saying, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to shift maybe Sochan to the bench and insert Keldon Johnson for a bit more offensive upside? For me, I don't really see that happening, even though I'm seeing a lot of Spurs fans mention that, because Chris Paul, even though he can't really ISO score with the best of them, like, I mean, maybe he was never one of the best ISO scorers, but he was definitely quite good at it. He was, a primary scorer for parts of his career, or at least he had that ability to be that guy. Not so much anymore. Devin Vassell definitely can do that. Harrison Barnes, again, is more of that off-ball scorer now. He used to have a bit of a post game, Barnes used to be a very solid scorer when the ball was in his hands. Again, not so much anymore. So I get that with Keldon Johnson maybe being inserted, for example, for Sochan. So you have another guy who's a comfortable scorer, a former 20-point per game scorer, coming into that starting lineup and just being an offensive catalyst for this team. But for me, just having Chris Paul and Wembanyama, that alone is enough to create enough gravity that your other guys are not going to have to worry about primary scoring, right? So Devin Vassell, you can give him the ball maybe in an ISO, and I'm sure he's going to keep improving upon last year. Like, he has been so good offensively. He's really added a lot of versatility to his offensive game. And I mean, those pull-up mids are still quite good for him, right? And he can shoot the three. He can do all this stuff. He's not bad as a primary ball handling scorer. But just Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama, to me, are the perfect fit. You can put any three players in between. But to me, the three that you see here, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Sochan, if I had to put money on it, those would be the guys who are going to be starting alongside Chris Paul and Wembanyama, who are basically guaranteed the spots at this point, especially Wemby. But I do want to hear from you guys, because there are going to be people that disagree with that. There are going to be people that do say, hey, let's maybe put Johnson in that starting lineup, just see what it is. Or maybe we don't start with that. We see how this team looks, and if they're struggling to score, which I don't imagine is going to be an issue, then you can look for some changes. But isn't it so fun to finally be talking about this stuff, to see who's going to be in the starting five, who's going to be that sixth man off the bench, which I think should be Keldon Johnson as that sixth-man scoring role. But anyway, I'm not gonna stay on this topic for too long, but let me know your thoughts down below on your starting five. I'm gonna see all these predictions for the starting five right down there. Final thing for this video. Man, this video feels like it's flying by, doesn't it? And I want to bring up these comments from Coach Pop about Stephon Castle. I'm obviously a huge Castle guy. I think he has been amazing. The Summer League, he only played a couple games. Some people were high on him, some people were low. I thought he just showed so much control and so much maturity in those games. That was the one thing that stood out to me for a guy, again, like, he didn't play a ton in college, right? He was more of an off-ball guy. He was kind of playing the two guard. There's a lot of this stuff, but man, that maturity that I saw in his game, and just almost like the game kind of came to him, and I really like that. Anyway, we're going to get into Coach Pop's thoughts. He said, I'm very impressed. Really mature young man, has a great demeanor, good basketball IQ. He's strong. He learns quickly. These are all great Spurs basketball quotes if I've ever heard him. He's a good one. He can play 1, 2, or 3 right now. And I thought that last part was maybe the most interesting, because Stephon Castle was 6'6", 215. Those were his college measurements. I actually haven't checked, not in the last day or two, in the Spurs training camp to see what he was listed at. Let me know down below if it's not 6'6", 215, but I think the height is right. I'm not sure about the weight, but regardless, like, you look at those stats in college, again, 11 points. He kind of played more of a wing role, so it's not like it's something that he's not familiar with. Again, the shooting splits were not quite there. In Summer League, he was definitely not the most efficient. Again, it was only like a couple games. We'll see more in the preseason. But I love the fact that he seems to be one of those guys that has that right attitude. He's able to learn. He's mature, high IQ. He's listening. He's trying to get better in every way that he can. Because to me, you can have a prospect with all the skill in the world, but if they're not willing to go out there every single day, work their butt off to get better at their weaknesses, or even to raise their top end even higher, you're never going to get the maximum potential out of it. And with Castle, not only were we surprised with how good he looked, I know, like, we were kind of watching, like, in that Summer League or whenever we got to see him working out, it's like, dang, this guy's going to be, I think, better than most people think that he was going to be, right? People now already saying, even though it's too early, Castle's going to be the steal of the draft. There's all that talk always with a 4th pick overall. Maybe they'll say, hey, maybe you should have gone first. Whatever. Again, it's too early. Is it? I don't know. I like getting hyped about our own prospects, but the thing with Castle, to hear this quote from Pop, I'm going to pop it back up because I do think it's really awesome. To hear that he has great IQ and that he's strong and he learns quickly, and the fact he can play the 3 in some lineups, I think that gives the Spurs some flexibility. Because again, if we go back to this depth chart, the 3 position for the Spurs is kind of Barnes and Champagny, and I know Johnson can play the 3 and Sochan could play the 3, but they're not that ideal. But you could see lineups, like, especially bench lineups. Let's say you keep Devin Vassell out there, you take Paul and Barnes out. It's not crazy to say you have a lineup of Tre Jones. What if you even go like Tre Jones, Malachi Branham, Stephon Castle in the backcourt, right? Or even put Blake Wesley in there somewhere. I don't think it's that crazy depending on the matchup, right? Now, you'll have to tweak with the lineups and see how the guys are developing depending on their play styles, all this stuff. But I'm just saying, I'm loving everything I'm hearing from Stephon Castle and about Stephon Castle, because this guy, I think, is poised to have a really solid rookie year. Is he going to be in Rookie of the Year talks? I think he could be if his role gets improved and improved and improved. And based on what we're hearing, he's one of those guys that I'm banking on for him to get better very, very fast, faster than I think almost anyone's expecting. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about Stephon Castle down below, because to hear these things from Coach Pop, it's kind of the exact things that you know he wants to see in a player as well. So it got me really, really optimistic. But that'll do it for this episode of Spurs Digest. If you enjoy, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, 85%. If you're watching right now, you're probably not subscribed. And I would really appreciate it if you did, because we got Spurs videos all season long. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.